The Midnight Game is a creepypasta, and if you don't know what a creepypasta is, it's effectively a scary story told online. The vast majority wrote by hobbyist writers as works of fiction. Granted, many of their ambiguous beginnings plants a seed of doubt in the mind that whispers, "Could this be real?" Which is in part the beauty and horror of many of these tales. If you are unfamiliar with the Midnight Game creepypasta, I highly recommend reading it before watching this video. I will leave a link to it in the description below. After you finish reading, come back to this video and I will attempt to explain much of the hidden history and ideas behind the story. In the story, the author says, and I quote, "The Midnight Game is an old pagan ritual, used mainly as punishment for those who have broken the laws of the pagan religion in question." End quote. Now, based off this, I have to say I am unable to find any information on if this is true, and I am unaware of any religion or mythology who uses this ritual as punishment. Therefore, given the nature of the story, I'd have to say the Midnight Game creepypasta is in itself a work of fiction. That being said, some of the ideas and ritual parts actually do have certain relations to superstitions, folklore, and yes, even some connections to real pagan rituals. Well, specifically Greek and Celtic rituals, but we will get to that later on. In the ritual, it was required that the person or persons performing the ritual knock on a wooden door that leads outside 22 times at midnight, but the last knock must fall before 12:01 a.m. Then you open the door. The creepypasta states that this is to call the spirit known as the Midnight Man to enter your home. Interestingly enough, there is a lot of counterparts to this part of the story, in actual folklore. I'm sure many of you have heard the phrase knocking on wood. Although therein lay a confusing point, as knocking on wood is supposed to be good luck, right? Whereas in the creepypasta, this action summons a spirit that tries to kill you. Believe it or not, this, however, still makes sense in the context of the superstition of knocking on wood, as even though I'm sure many of you have heard of this myth, I bet not all of you know why it's supposed to be good luck. In Celtic mythology, it was believed that spirits occupied trees, and to a lesser degree any object made of wood. These spirits were mostly friendly, and knocking on wood was to invite the spirits out or to ask the spirits for protection from misfortune. Some cultures even seen this as a way of thanking spirits or deities for their blessings, and the action of doing so was believed to chase away evil spirits. Or to grant luck to the one knocking. This still does not explain why the spirit in the story then attempts to kill you, but it does explain the connection between knocking on wood and summoning spirits. As for the importance of the number 22, it turns out 22 is a number often found in magical practices, folklore, mythology, and religion. Examples being a tarot deck has 22 trump cards, the Hebrew alphabet has 22 letters, and the Jewish Kabbalah, there are 22 paths between the Sephiroth. Another aspect of the ritual requires that the one performing it must write their full name on a piece of paper, then mark the paper with a drop of their own blood. The significance of a name is one of the strongest presences in many magical practices, specifically the significance of the true name. The true name being a word or set of words that describes or represents everything the being holding it is. It is a very common theme, both in folklore and in magical practices, that knowledge of a being's true name grants power over them to any who know it. A classic example of this belief can be found in the tale of Rumpelstiltskin. The placement of the blood on the paper also has many roots in many different mythologies and magical practices, from fetish magic that focuses on the idea that every part of a person can be used as a direct link to that person, which is why voodoo dolls are supposed to work, to the Christian belief that when someone sells their soul to the devil, they must sign a contract with their own blood. Now, necromancy is the practice of divination through communication, summoning, or otherwise interacting with the dead, often referred to as umbra or shades by the ancient Greeks. Also in Greece, there existed necromancers who were followers of Hades and Persephone. At this time in ancient Greece, people would travel to temples maintained by necromancers in hopes of communicating with deceased loved ones. These temples often were constructed around the entrances of natural caves. Shades are supposedly the ghosts of the dead who are either in the dark realm of Hades, which is a shadowy land and why the shades appear as dark figures or shadows, or the spirits of individuals unable to either pay the ferryman entrance to Hades, or for whatever reason refuse or are unable to enter Hades, and thus wander the living world as shadows. Also, I should point out that the entity mentioned in the creepypasta appears as a pure black humanoid figure. Sound like a shade? And of course I cannot mention shades without pointing out the phenomenon of shadow people, which is a reported type of haunting in which apparitions of shadowy or pitch-black figures are seen. Given these sightings, one has to wonder if the Greek reports of shades wasn't inspired by such sightings, or perhaps the Greeks were right. The Midnight Game is a ritual game of cat and mouse. The player, or mouse, is given one candle that they must keep lit until 3:33 a.m. In Western folklore, it is commonly believed that 3 a.m. is the peak of paranormal activity, often referred to as the witching hour, and that the hours from midnight to 3 a.m. are the strongest time of day for both encountering the paranormal and practicing ritual magic. Now, candles and fire, on the other hand, have many spiritual uses, and is really too broad a subject to cover in this video, and honestly warrants its own video entirely. That being said, I will point out some of the connection candles and fire may have to this particular ritual. The first being that fire itself represents life, which can heavily be seen in the candle's role in the game. As supposedly when the midnight man gets near, your candle goes out. And if you read the story, I'm sure you know what happens next. The other connection fire might have to this ritual is in the belief that fire scares away evil spirits and offers protection to anyone in the light cast by the flames. The ancient Celts were known to light bonfires on Samhain for protection from the hostile spirits that were believed to roam on that night. Given all this, it is my belief that the intended purpose of the many facets of this ritual are to call a shade, bind it to you, and the rules of the game with your blood. Give it knowledge of your name so that it has power over you. The blood also might be used to empower the shade. The candle and the salt is then intended to protect you from the spirit you summoned to haunt you. All in all, it's quite an ingenious meshing of various pre-existing beliefs and rituals. My hats off in respect to you, original author of the Midnight Game. And who knows, I might even attempt the Midnight Game myself sometime. Then post my attempts at the ritual on my channel, of course. As for you viewers, let me know if you would like to see me perform this ritual in the comments below. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more content like this in the future. Good night.